G'day and welcome to Season 2 of Harvestable by AgriDigital. Our 8-part mini-series will feature raw and unedited fireside chats with some of agriculture's most insightful minds, sharing their perspectives across the grain supply chain. In this episode, we are joined by Grace Quast of Domain Farm, Krubel.
Hi everyone, welcome back. This is episode 4 of our second season of Harvestable for 2022. Now, if you've been listening to all of our recorded sessions, you will know this is actually the 5th recorded session because we did a bonus episode back in week 2. We released 2 episodes at once with our guest host, Henry Walsh, who heads up AgriDigital Finance. So I hope you found those interesting, but this is actually officially episode 4. And of course, Harvestable is where we bring together farmers, supply chain operators, thought leaders, and others in the space and working with and all around the grains industry just to talk about things that matter to us. And today I'm really super pumped to have Grace Quast joining me. So welcome, Grace.
Thanks, Emma. It's wonderful to be with you.
This is very raw, very real, and we were experiencing a few little hiccups potentially with internet. And you are out on your farm in northern New South Wales. It could be that, it could be me, who knows. Just ask everyone to bear with us if we need to repeat things, but hopefully we'll be able to get along okay. So yeah, Grace, tell me and tell all of our listeners all about who you are, where you're based. I believe you are based on your...
Yes, so my name is Grace Quast. I'm a writer and a photographer, and my husband David and I we actually purchased from his father and his grandfather during 2017, so just before the drought. We bought out his family farming holdings here in Krubel. So that's kind of in between Moree and Gundawindi in northern New South Wales. And we grow wheat, chickpeas, sorghum, barley, mung beans, and we really like to experiment under our pivots with, anything new. We're looking to do some red sorghum next year. So yeah.
Oh, interesting. We might even... One of the reasons I was really excited to have you as part of Harvestable this year is, Grace, is that we've been doing some work with you ourselves just for transparency purposes. So
yes,
we love the work that you do, particularly this amazing eye that you have for as a photographer. It really, really captured the essence for us of things that we wanted to share in terms of building out what we do at AgriDigital, the connections that we have with our customers, the connections our customers have with each other. So yeah, really want to explore that. And of course, we will put all of your details in the show notes, as they say, because your website, your Instagram, all of that stuff is just incredibly amazing. So we will talk a bit about the photography side of things. And when we were prepping this episode, I sort of said to you I really wanted to kind of talk about harvest in pictures. What it's like, building out and I know you are a writer as well, but the photography business and being, I guess, part of a family farming operation, but also then having this life as a rural writer and photographer. Like what is that actually like? What's a typical day like?
Well, I definitely think that if I tried to start having the business with my photography and writing that I have now I wouldn't be able to do it. But because I kind of really ramped that up during the drought, we weren't busy on the farm. So part of us buying out all the future, like the previous generations, is that it's just us. So with the decision making, the logistics, where we're selling, what we're growing, managing our staff, it's just us. So the farm always has to come first. And because I started during the drought, all my clients got to know me, they got to know our farm, they met my husband because he could often come to shoots because he wasn't busy on the farm. And it meant that by the time we got busy again, they are actually really happy, like you guys, to fit around our harvests and our planting. And we have quite a few of those a year because we have quite a few summer crops. So we actually fill out our calendars quite solidly, but my clients are really wonderful. So any given day is just really well organised. So I always say you can have just one wild card, and I'm sure for most people that's their children. And for us, that's the farm. So my work with my creative work is very well booked out in advance. I do a lot of work with Grazy Home magazines and agricultural businesses and actually fashion businesses, and they all know to book me out well in advance. And that means I don't overwhelm myself.
Yeah.
And that means times like this, where David could come in at any minute forgetting I'm doing a podcast and want me to go and do something, you know, everybody understands that that's our life and that's how it rolls.
Yeah, so it's this really transparent, I'll say an attempt at balance, because it probably isn't a perfect
Yeah.
balance. No one has a perfect balance, but this really transparent way of, and this, living with integrity, if you like, as both a farmer and, as a rural photographer, writer, and creative, I guess.
Well, I'm always really honest with everybody that I try and give a really quick turnaround. So if I've gone and done some photos, I try and get them done in the longest period of time in a week, because I'm just worried what will fill my brain in that week, what could go wrong on the farm or what could. So we pretty much work 7 days a week, and that's by choice. I want to be doing the creative work that I get to do. And so I'm happy to be editing at nighttime while we watch Netflix, or I'm happy, to be filling our time with that. And then when we do go away, we make a really concerted effort to switch off.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we work our life in blocks of intense work and then rest.
Yeah, super interesting. And I'm glad I'm not the only one who also, can multitask whilst Netflixing.
It's definitely not healthy for your spine, I don't think, the laptop.
Probably not something we should be advocating. But and you spoke about, so these blocks of time, knowing when the busy times are, when you can take the rest periods or the times out, communicating that with customers and others. Just before we kind of dig into that a bit further, what is actually happening at the moment? You're in northern New South Wales. We know what's happening at Moree. That's not too far away from you. Are you actually harvesting right now? I mean, you normally would be, right?
Yes, we are. My voice probably sounds a little bit fragile. I think when you start and stop harvest a lot, you start to get a little bit on edge. So I'm sorry if I come across a little bit fractured. We're very lucky. So we are undulating country about 65 k's northeast of Moree. And while we get blocked off by the creeks, we don't face anything like what they face. And then the poor people out west, who the water's been moving really slowly this last flood event. So the people at Rowena and Walgett, they just faced this agonizing wait while a wall of water just headed towards them and their crops. So we're facing challenges. It sprinkles most days and it doesn't take many mils at all to pull up. But we're so much luckier than most people, and we really keep that in the front of mind every day. So we've had a lot of cleaning the workshop and getting farm work done, because we've got such a big workforce here for harvest. So we're getting on top of all those jobs. And I guess quality wise is really down this year, which can be expected. I think we had 160 mils and then another 30 mils within 7 days, kind of in that last week of October, when we would have already usually have been harvesting. And that seems to have damaged the early wheat, but still huge yields. But we're really, fingers crossed for the later wheat that's still green.
Yeah, and that does seem to be the early indication yields. We're hearing about a lot of, certainly above average yields, but the quality isn't there, which just may not matter this year, given the shorts that are existing in other parts of the world. So, there's there are silver linings, I guess, in there. And I don't know whether actually, but I and our family, we farm out at Warren in New South Wales, West New South Wales, and I came down to Sydney yesterday, but I had to walk out because we've still got floodwaters, and so it was just a couple of k's through water and mud, and a few dry patches of ground here and there. With the dog alongside, because I was taking the dog to the kennel. So anyway, it was fun, the fun and games of floods. But as you said, it doesn't take much to disrupt a harvest, even if you're not in flood at the moment. There's plenty of other challenges that the weather is throwing up at us.
Well, the soil profiles are so full. The soil profiles, we had a mammoth sorghum crop earlier in the year, and wheat went in behind, the sorghum crop, and they still have a full profile, even though that country's grown 2 massive crops in the last kind of 9 months. It's just crazy. So we have a full dam, we have water running off our paddocks, and we have really dark black self-mulching soil. So you can pretty much at the moment run your finger across the top of our paddock, and it's like running your finger through a warm brownie. It's just so soft. It's just so wet that the boys have kind of gone to the topmost part of the farm and are starting there, and we're lucky that was our earliest wheat. But we still have chickpeas that are flowering and potting, so
Yeah,
it's going to be a very late harvest, the chickpeas.
Yes, it's going to be definitely an interesting Christmas and New Year, particularly for those northern parts of Australia that would normally be well and truly done by then, but could still be harvesting late crops, and certainly I think that'll be the case through parts of central New South Wales, of course, as well. Do you actually take photos during harvest? I was wondering.
Yes, I sometimes get so busy that I don't remember until just before we've finished a variety or a different crop. So I'm running before the header and getting David in front of the photos. But I try to, and it's something that I say to everyone, is just take photos all the time. So for the most part, we have photos of all of our crops at every stage for the past 8 years since I first picked up a camera. And it actually is really helpful to be able to look back on that and compare the crops and see the differing landscape and how things looked.
Yeah, it's like a visual diary in some ways, I guess.
It is, and it was never something I set out to do. It was just that taking crop photos was how I started to learn to be a photographer. And so we naturally built up this bank of images that we can look back on. But I definitely think that the photos that I've been taking and sharing on my Instagram and on the Domain Farm, our farm's Instagram, there definitely wasn't a plan for me doing that. And sometimes it'll be 12 weeks before I've posted something on my personal one. But it really has made all the difference in the world when we have tried to staff harvest or look for full-timers or anything towards staffing in this national staff shortage. And I do believe it's because people can verify who we are. They can go and look and see where we are, what town are we near, who we are as owners and farmers. They know we've got a Labrador, they know what we grow. And I think that's so important, because if I was 21 and I was going to work on a harvest crew or head up north, I'd want to know where I was going.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I mean, it's like, it's kind of an extension of that integrity piece I was talking to earlier, and, taking that right in and thinking about brand identity, not just as, some kind of twee social media presence, but actually, underlying the reality of who you are, what you do, where you are, what type of, I guess, workplace, the community that you're part of, all visible, and we'll share it as well, the Domain Farm Instagram. I mean, I love that as well.
And it's definitely not big. Let me just put it out there to the viewers now. I am not out there making hilarious reels and things. It really just is a touchstone for our business. And we had a website built this year, and we've got more hats and shirts and things made. And I'm just realizing how much it all contributes to a really wonderful culture.
Yeah.
When all our staff turned up this year for harvest, they already felt like they knew us a bit, and that was really wonderful.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I hadn't really thought about that aspect. And so when you're taking photos at harvest, or indeed, for any shoot, how do you, given the rural nature of what you do and not everything is kind of static shots, like how do you blend, I guess, taking like action shots with, not doing, like how do you set up a header, for example? Or is it just like you take the shot and you hope you get it?
I don't ever disrupt harvest, so I just work around everybody. The one exception to that is I take dinner to the paddock every evening during harvest, and I think that buys me a tiny little bit of grace to ask to take their photos and get them with the headers. And they all know what I do. They understand that what I'm creating when I'm out there with the drone hovering above the header or above the planter, so they have a bit of an understanding. But I just think controlling our own narratives for our own farming operations, but for agriculture on the whole is so important, because other people have done it for us for so long that
Yeah.
anytime we have that chance to get out into the paddock and share what we're doing and it be just the real unvarnished truth, it's the easiest thing to do. Social media is completely free. It doesn't cost you anything to do. Your iPhone is such a wonderful tool, especially with, I find it really wonderful to watch what people share on stories on Instagram rather than so much their static imagery.
Yeah.
You really need static imagery for your websites or for your grid, I guess, if you're selling a product. But if you're a farm and you're trying to build connection, if you feel a little bit uncomfortable with that, if you just start off, it's only there for 24 hours, it doesn't have to be a big clip, but you can share your crop or your children running down the road or something that starts to build that connection with people who might want to come and work with you, or, you know, might want to develop a flower product with you, or that kind of stuff. It opens up your horizons, I think.
Yeah, it's such an interesting way of, I mean, part of what we have been trying to do at AgriDigital is really enable farmers in particular to be true participants in the supply chain, to be able to create their own supply chains. You know, this is potentially another way in, you know,
Absolutely.
through to do that, you know, where as producers, you know, we, as you said, can take control, because there isn't a lot that we've been able to take control of.
No.
You know, and this is one thing that we can do. One thing I've wondered about, you know, in terms of what you do and how you do it, is it when you're trying to get the shot, so to speak. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but, you know, in inverted commas, get the
No,
shot.
that's it. You're getting the shot.
Is it place? Is it people? Is it time of day? Like what's the primary thing, or is it a mix of all of those?
I think if you're a business and you're wanting to get your story out there, you need to cover that who, what, where, when, and why. So have your people, have your header, have your chickpeas or your wheat or your sheep or whatever it is that you're growing, and make sure you're featuring all of those things. And if you're really wanting those harvest shots that are kind of the golden tones with the wheat dust floating through the air, you want to do that just before sunset in the afternoon. That's like the supremo time to take photos. In my experience, I don't always remember to take photos at that time of day. So I just take them all the time,
Yeah.
because, you know, that way you have them and you're not going to look back and regret the photos that you took. And I definitely think iPhones are such a wonderful technology now. I use your iPhone. My latest iPhone that I bought has a more 48 megapixel camera in
Yeah.
it, which is just huge. Like, those images could be printed on a billboard and it would be perfectly fine. And at least then you have it, and that gets you comfortable with taking photos. I know a lot of David's friends have reached out, and I think possibly where they would have thought my taking photos in the crop and of him 5 years ago was a little bit twee, they now see and call him and say, that's so clever what she's doing. I see people respond to your job ads. They understand it. And
Yeah.
it is really daunting, but I think just start.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, that's the thing, like so many pieces of advice in life, isn't it, is just to take that first step. And I guess, like, you know, to acclimatize ourselves, it could be that where we don't think we're good photographers, or you know, sometimes that doesn't even matter. It's actually just, you know, some authentic images coming through that really speak to who you are, you know, the type of connection that you're trying to make, and I guess then that build some level of comfort with all of us around sharing those images, you know, putting ourselves out there. You probably didn't have a problem with that, but have any of your customers, you know, had a problem with, you know, saying, oh, I'm happy with that image. That's very, you know, it's a very traditional image, let's say, you know, of farmer and crop, but I'm not so happy with that one, which is, you know, a blooper image or us having a laugh, or maybe it's an image of the kids or something that they're not as comfortable with.
Well, it's interesting. So I always respect everybody's individual role, view on whether they want their children in the images or not. But in terms of them having an issue with anything, I think they trust me.
Yeah.
I do a lot of crop photos for the National, so the Australian and the Sydney Morning Herald and the Fin Review. And I think they trust that I'm going to give them, the right crop, because it would be quite disconcerting for them. And I know when I started talking to you guys, you said to me one of the good things is what you're photographing. But no, I don't think anybody's ever. I think people are very self-conscious, and I think traditionally rural Australians, we were really taught to not big note ourselves, but there's a very big difference between big noting yourself and sharing your story.
Yeah, true.
And that's something that I really work on with everybody I come into contact with, whether it's getting them to be comfortable for a Grazie Her story, or I'm helping them with their branding imaging, which they know they need, because there's no business now that doesn't need to validate themselves with a website or an online presence or social media, because it's a touchstone for their customers to build that trust with them.
Yeah, that's I mean, it is just that. It's a basic, it's an essential, it's an entry point requirement now, I would have thought. And, how sophisticated or in depth you may go in terms of imagery or storytelling, that's of course up to the individual business and, the individuals involved. One last question, because I really do need to respect your time and the fact that you are actually harvesting at the moment. And as you said, the team could come back at any time and need your help, or just kind of
I just want a job.
in on our podcast. Which would also be fine.
I'm just worried they're going to walk in the door and say the moisture's up.
Yeah, we love that color. We love that color coming into the podcast. But if you is there a shot that you haven't taken yet that is the shot that's on your bucket list?
We have quite a few center pivots on our farm, and at this time of year, when everything's really kind of waist high, I would really love to get more into the aerial photos and really capturing how our landscape undulates across and around the pivots, with the contrast of the circles that, say, at the moment are golden with the green of the chickpeas around them. I really want to get more into aerial photography. And that's something else that everybody can do now, because drones are so available and a lot cheaper than they used to be, a lot more accessible than they used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's super interesting. I'm going to look at it, and I just want to say thank you very much for sharing, not just who you are and what you do, but there's just been a lot of, almost free advice that you've given our listeners, which I really, really
Oh gosh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I think that's amazing. I think that's incredible, and everyone's getting more than what they bargained for listening to this episode, which is awesome. The other thing I just wanted to say, thank you for, is the work you've done at AgriDigital. You're absolutely right. We were looking for someone who understood what we wanted, and who knew what they were taking photos of, who understood how to help us build connection and tell stories, and really that's what you do. I mean, I know you have on your website, you're a rural writer and photographer, and that is of course what you are. But I do think of every time I look at your photos, I think there is a story there, and I'm just really grateful that you shared yours with us today.
I've just loved working with the team, and it's been so wonderful. I see so clearly the vision for what you guys are trying to do.
We'll get there. We'll keep building just like everyone else. Thanks for being part of Harvest. Good luck with the rest of Harvest, as well as, before you know it, you'll be into summer harvest as well. That just feels what it's like at the moment.
Yes, it only feels like we just harvested sorghum, to be completely honest with you.
Well, that's right. You just finished one and you're into another, and then suddenly the next one will be along. But I guess that's what happens in God's own country, hey?
Yes. Thank you for having me, Em. I hope you guys dry out at home soon.
I hope so too. I'd love to be able to get a header onto what's left of our wheat crop anyway. That'd be very exciting. Well, thanks, Grace, and we'll look forward to catching up in the new year at some point, because I know you're pretty busy up until then. And yeah, we'll continue building our story and telling it through your images and your vision as well. But thanks very much for joining us today.
Can't wait, Emma. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Harvestable by AgriDigital. We hope you enjoyed this fireside chat, and see you next week for another episode.